This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. So right now the Browns are 1-4. A lot of people are thinking about the draft. A lot of people are thinking about next year already. It's unfortunate that the Browns are in early October and a lot of people already feel like the season is lost. All I can hope for is that the Browns find a way to play some decent football down the stretch so we can get excited about some football here, even if we know it's not going to be championship caliber. If we could just have some fun football again, some football that doesn't fill us with pure misery and dread, right? Like maybe that would be fun if we can enjoy our Sundays. It doesn't have to be championship quality football for this season. I think we all understand that when you start 1-4, getting to a championship game is very hard to achieve, especially when you don't have a quarterback. But I mean, if we could just get some football we'd be proud of, that'd be great. But because you start out 1-4, a lot of people are screaming rebuild, right? I see it a lot in my chat, see it a lot in the comment section. People are demanding a rebuild, fire this coach, fire this general manager, trade everybody, move everybody. Some people want to fire the coach and coordinator because they think that will salvage Deshaun Watson. But what I do know is that this offseason, the Browns are going to have to get a little younger. This is an older team, and they don't have a quarterback. So they're hoping to get a quarterback, which means you probably got to get rid of a lot of the 30-plus players on this team. Now, some people have suggested using our young players to trade them for draft picks. I think this is a bad idea, right? When I see people say we should just trade Myles Garrett, we should just trade Grant Delpit to load up on draft picks, I think that's a bad idea. Some people think it's a good idea because you can get a bunch of draft assets. I always say about draft assets that they are the most overvalued asset in all of sports. Like, people love draft assets because you're basically trading for hope in the future, but you're not trading for anything concrete. And most of the time, when you trade for a bunch of draft assets, the return is underwhelming, especially when you're trading really good established players for those draft assets. Usually rarely works out. If you're a Browns fan, you just need to look back in history to know how badly this idea can go, right? Trading what could be a great player for a bunch of chances to get decent players down the road usually ends up in disaster, right? The Julio Jones trade was an absolute disaster, and so on and so forth. You could just take a number of Browns trades in the future. I mean, not in the future, in the past, and know that way of going about it is a disaster. You're not going to find any proper trade value for Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is worth 45 draft picks. You're not going to get 45 draft picks from anybody. You can only get 3 first-round draft picks from somebody. Myles Garrett is a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-generation, all-time Cleveland Browns level player who will go on the Hall of Fame the day he retires, or at least 5 years from the day he retires. Yeah, you don't trade that guy. That guy's a cornerstone of your franchise. That guy's not worth it to trade. If you have any hope of the Browns having any type of culture in the future, if they rebuild with a younger squad, you need Myles Garrett there. You need an identity as a football team. Myles Garrett gives you an identity as a football team. He's untouchable. There's no trade that exists that would make sense to trade Myles Garrett. You're not being smart or savvy when you suggest the Browns should trade Myles Garrett for a bunch of first-round picks. You're just demonstrating that you don't really grasp what it is that you're talking about. Because when you want to trade a player like Myles Garrett for first-round picks, you're basically saying, hey, let's trade a Hall of Fame football player for a chance to get somebody who might be good. It's a ridiculous gamble. It's a gamble that has no chance of ever being worth it. It's a dumb idea. No disrespect to the people who've had it, but this idea is dumb. And if the Browns do it, they're a dumb franchise. Truly. Like if AB traded Myles, I don't care. I'm wanting him fired immediately. That's just, you don't do that. You can't do that. And honestly, any good players that you have under contract right now that are under 30, you keep those guys. And the reason you keep those guys is because you never know what the turnaround's going to look like for the quarterback position. Again, Kevin Stefanski has a track record of being able to work with a wide range of quarterbacks. It just so happens that Deshaun Watson's not in that range of quarterback, but he's worked well with guys like Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco, Baker Mayfield. Like, he's had success with a wide range of quarterbacks. It's not absurd to think that the Browns could get somebody and that quarterback could have a resurgence. And then all of a sudden you're ready to compete again. Just like that. Like after 1 year down, or maybe not even 1 year down. Or maybe you get a quarterback in the draft and he's ready. Now you're going to feel pretty damn foolish if you get a quick turnaround on a quarterback and then you want to compete immediately, but Myles Garrett's playing for the freaking Minnesota Vikings because you traded him for 3 first-round picks. And the help can't be around that quarterback until, what, year 3, year 4? And then some of that help can't even help that quarterback until that quarterback's second contract. And next thing you know, you're spending a bunch of money on edge rushers who are half as good as Myles Garrett to replace the hole that got created because you traded Myles Garrett. If the Browns got a quick turnaround on the quarterback, but then you realize they traded all their best players, you'll be furious. And look, when people say you should trade all your players for draft picks, that's one of those things that sound good in the comment section or sound good in a live chat setting. But then if the Browns start actually doing it, it becomes very obvious that everybody actually hates that idea. Like, let the Browns trade JOK. Ain't nobody gonna be a fan of that. Let them trade Myles Garrett and see if all these people in the chat who think it's a clever idea to trade your best player in franchise history since 1999 for 3 first-round picks will be thrilled that you did it. They'd be furious. They'd be furious. People get mad at the thought of trading Nick Chubb. Imagine if you traded Myles Garrett. Also, I just want to point out the fallacy of trading a superstar player like Myles Garrett for draft picks that is created, because you're going to trade Myles Garrett to a team to get their draft picks in the first round, but you're also trading Myles Garrett in his prime to a team, which means that team's probably going to get a lot better. Which means that team's probably going to win a lot more games than they did the year before. Which means those picks that you traded Myles Garrett for get less and less valuable because the team you traded Myles Garrett to somehow got better because they got Myles Garrett. Again, it's a trade idea that sounds good on paper to some people. But if you really think about the application of trading somebody like Myles Garrett for more than just the draft compensation, actually think about how that would work out, it would probably be a bad idea. Let alone, let's remember, the only teams that would be willing to trade for Myles Garrett are probably teams that are already competitive to start. So you're not talking about trading them to the Carolina Panthers. You're talking about trading this dude to a good team that's probably going to become great because now they have one of the best defensive players in the NFL, if not the best defensive players in the NFL. It's not a sound idea any way you put it. Imagine if the 49ers were like, hey, man, let's have a fire sale. Trey Lance didn't work out. And then Brock Purdy gets there and there's no Deebo Samuel. They feel pretty damn foolish, right? Or if the Vikings decided this offseason to have a fire sale and we're going to let Justin Jefferson go and we're going to let all these guys go and we're going to trade all these players because we're just going to stink because we don't got Kirk Cousins anymore. Where would they be at this year if they decided that? They feel pretty damn foolish, wouldn't they? Trading your best young players because you're mad at the team right now. Again, it sounds good in chat. It sounds good on Twitter. Maybe some of your friends will upvote it or whatever. But in reality, it's a bad idea. It's a horrible idea. Another thing that people talk about, should the Browns fire Kevin Stefanski? Now, look, depending on how long Kevin wants to ride on this whole Watson thing, and let's be honest here, Jimmy Haslam's involved in this, so is Andrew Berry involved in this, so it's not as clean as like, oh, Kevin just wants to ride this out, right? There's a lot of other people involved with the decision to play Deshaun week to week. But let's imagine a world where the Browns fire Kevin Stefanski because they're frustrated with the offense and they don't think it's the quarterback's fault, that it's not Deshaun Watson's fault, right? Because the reason you would fire the coach is presumably to get a new offensive philosophy around Deshaun Watson. That's why you would fire the coach. If you decide to move on from Deshaun Watson, you're deciding that Deshaun Watson is the problem. So you're not moving on from Deshaun Watson and firing Kevin Stefanski. You're firing Kevin Stefanski to get a new coach around Deshaun Watson. That's the situation if you fire Kevin. There's no world where you just decide to do both. That don't make any sense. So let's say you fire Kevin. Who in their right mind is going to want to coach a Cleveland Browns football team where you get saddled with Deshaun Watson right now? You think Bill Belichick's going to leave retirement to come coach Deshaun Watson after looking like Duke in 2024? You think Bill Belichick's biting at the heels for that? What about Brian Flores? You think Brian Flores wants to get hitched to his boy and come coach for the Browns so he could be Deshaun Watson's head coach like they thought they would be in Miami? You think that's what Brian Flores wants? I don't think he wants that anymore. Everybody brings up Mike Vrabel. Now, I feel like we be ignoring some things with Mike Vrabel, like the last 2 years at Tennessee, how those defenses looked, the fact that the defense is not better this year, even though Mike Vrabel is a part of the Browns coaching staff right now. We're ignoring a lot of that to pump up Mike Vrabel. But even Mike Vrabel ain't going to take this job if it means that he has to be Deshaun Watson's coach. Who's taking this job to saddle themselves with Deshaun Watson after this start to the season? You think we're getting a Hall of Fame coach? Think we're getting Bill Belichick back in Cleveland? Are you kidding me? Come on, man. Come on. You got to be for real. We got to be for real. If we're deciding that Kevin Stefanski is the problem, okay, then who is going to want to come in and be the solution? Because you got to answer that question to me if you think Kevin is the problem and you got to fire Kevin to fix Deshaun. I don't believe that this take is real, that people actually think this, but, you know, people are saying it. And if you're saying fire Kevin, I have to assume you think that's because firing Kevin would make Deshaun better. Who wants that job right now? Who wants the job of making Deshaun Watson better at football? Who wants that job? I don't think Bill O'Brien's wanting to do that. Like, nobody wants to do that. So all this talk about like firing your head coach and getting a new head coach, it's fantasy talk. It's not real. Kevin's got like 4 years left on that deal. The only way he gets fired if the Browns double down on Deshaun Watson and he doesn't want to do it anymore. Or the Browns decide that they could get better out of Deshaun Watson with a different head coach. And again, if that's the case, who is taking the job? They could call me and I wouldn't take that job. Like, I know you crazy. It's a recipe to get fired and never coach again. That's insane. Nobody wants that job. So that's why I don't really think any of this talk about firing Kevin Stefanski makes sense. And again, I make this point so many times. I have seen Kevin Stefanski in the last 4 years have good offenses with different quarterbacks not named Deshaun Watson. I've seen that happen with Ken Dorsey over the last 4 years with different quarterbacks not named Deshaun Watson. You know who I haven't seen consistently be good since 2020? Deshaun Watson. I seen him look like this with Alex Van Pelt. I've seen him look like this with Ken Dorsey. I mean, we can think it's the coaching, but I don't know if the evidence points to that. And that doesn't even say that Ken Dorsey's doing a good job. Sometimes Deshaun plays so poorly, I don't know if I can evaluate Ken Dorsey properly. We try to do this egalitarian thing when it comes to judging the quarterback and say, oh, it's not just Deshaun. But Deshaun gets paid $45 million more than any other position player on the offense or defensive side of the ball, because Deshaun Watson is supposed to be a bigger percentage of the solution than any other player on this football team, because the quarterback position has that much impact on the game. That's why the quarterback gets so much credit when the team wins. And when that team loses and that quarterback's not playing well, you damn straight that quarterback should get blamed just as much. Yeah, it's not all Deshaun Watson, but Deshaun Watson's the biggest piece on this offense that's playing like absolute garbage. He's the centerpiece of it. Yes, the Browns have to rebuild. Yes, the Browns have to get younger, but we don't have to get rid of all of our good players just because Deshaun Watson sucks. We can keep JOK. We can keep Grant Delpit, because maybe the next guy who plays quarterback here, whether it's the long-term replacement or not, maybe that guy doesn't stink. Maybe that guy can figure something out. And if that's the case, you're going to want these guys on your team.